What up, everybody? Welcome to the Tears in Amsterdam conversation, the second in a bunch of conversations between me, Mikesh, and my boy Jack, where we just ramble about daily life. We just basically want to catch up, and we needed an excuse to record it just for our own archives and looking back and having fun. So yeah, how you been, Jack?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, it's been a long week, a long few months to be honest, man. Like it's just I don't know, just so much going on, and like I feel like we've talked about this so many different times, but it's that whole thing of how you like build up momentum and then it gets interrupted,
Yeah,
and then you have to build it up again, and then it gets interrupted, and it's
yep.
just I constantly feel like I get halfway up a mountain and then an avalanche happens and then I'm back at the bottom again. And I guess that's the myth of Sisyphus, isn't it? Pushing the boulder up the hill, only to have it roll back down again and have to push it back up. But yeah, it's
Hopefully
just
keeping the knowledge of that little bit that you kind of pushed it up.
yeah. Like I guess in some senses it's like a video game, I guess a platformer where you
Yeah,
get to a certain part of the level and you die, and it's just about making sure that you remember why you
yeah,
died,
yeah, yeah. Because you know the
Like
NPCs aren't going to change their route. You need to
exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like have you played Cuphead?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
Oh, it's so good, man. But it's like right at this point, he's gonna start throwing carrots at you, or he's gonna start spinning around and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Death
but I
Loop
guess
has has a similar kind of idea, I guess, because you're trying every day. Even the NPCs, no matter how many times you kill them, they'll run the same routes. They'll run the same thing. So you kind of learn the pattern more than you learn the game, I guess.
you learn the pattern, yeah.
Mm.
And I think, oh God, yeah, gotten so deep so quickly. But I was gonna say, I think I mean, that's what game theory is, isn't it? It's the theory of games. But I think a lot
Yeah,
of people learn it because they think that it can also apply to all aspects of life.
yeah,
And like, I guess life is just patterns, isn't it? And whatever you do, as long as you learn like the core pattern, whatever that is, then you can then apply it to everything.
yeah, yeah.
But uh, man, how are you anyway?
I'm good, man. I started my Christmas break today. I've got 3 weeks off in a row, 21 days of glory. I'm probably going to do nothing special, but I'm excited to do nothing, and that's a good thing. I'm going to see Spider-Man tomorrow, actually. I'm very excited about that. I'm trying to
Oh,
keep away from
really?
spoilers so much. And the beauty of today's technology where you've been like looking at something for so long that it becomes your recommended, it becomes your suggested, it becomes like everything in your feed is based on this shit. And I'm just like, fuck,
Hmm.
stay away from me because I have an idea of like one of the main twists, but I don't want to actually see the confirmation until I'm watching it in the cinema.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah,
Do you
that's
think?
sorry.
Do you think in some senses as well, you don't just have to protect yourself from the spoiler, but is there any part of you that has to protect yourself from yourself? In that I've watched programs where I found myself like not searching for spoilers, but almost like, just typing things in that might bring up spoilers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm an avid wrestling fan, as you know. Like there'll be days where I won't watch the pay-per-view, and then like the morning after, I'm like, I'm gonna watch this in the evening when I after work or after school back in the day, and then like, I'll
yeah.
try and stay away, try and stay away. I might type one wrestler's name in or something, and then boom, spoiler for the entire fucking show. So yeah, I'm a spoiler problem. Like I have problems with spoilers in the past.
Yeah. I
But yeah.
remember like the first time when we were younger, finding out that you could find out the wrestling results. I think was it before they happened or what? It was almost like someone leaking the storyline,
Yeah,
or was the
it's
storyline?
usually a leak in the storyline, and then the results could be leaked, and unless they pivoted away, then
Yeah,
you would know who it was.
yeah, yeah.
And then there'd be a point where you'd know the spoiler, and you'd hope they'd pivot away because either it wasn't your taste, or
You weren't happy with it. Yeah.
yeah, or you were just hoping for a surprise, even though you were the person to spoil it for yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah, please change it for me.
Yeah, yeah,
There's that reminded me of another thing from when we were younger, is how much people used to believe, and you might have your own stories regarding to this, but like just really bad sources for information, and I'm mostly thinking about for sports here. So for football, like I remember like I had a friend at school who I won't name because I mean it's never going to come back to them.
Anonymity,
It's not even that
yeah.
bad, but it just seems a bit unethical. But who used to come in like daily and be like, "Oh, have you heard Liverpool are going to sign Ronaldo and stuff like that?" And I'm like, "Where did you hear that?" And they're like, "Oh, goal." And I was like, "Because goal now, goal has like some
Yeah,
sources that are good, you know. But back in the day, goal was like the internet sun
yeah,
almost.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
some of the stuff they used to say, bro. Do you
It
remember
was
that?
basically a football Wikipedia, just because you would kind of go there for the stats more than the news. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And like you know that you're desperate when you're looking for rumors for who Arsenal are going to sign
yeah,
on
yeah,
goal in like
yeah, yeah,
2000 and let's say
yeah, yeah.
2008 or something.
Nasri.
Man.
That was the year, I think. But yeah, I've been there. You hope to learn quickly as a football fan in general that a transfer isn't real until it's announced by the club. Forget
Oh
Sky
man.
Sports, forget all that. Like you can I right now I stay away from transfer rumors until Arsenal.com tell me that like this is an actual player we've signed. Like,
What
and I can imagine you're getting towards the same, or you still keep an eye on it. I don't know.
Oh no, I don't. I mean, Liverpool got to this position where, well, before we even talk about that, like, like we're all right just talking about football on this, aren't we? I mean, it's our conversation anyway. So, yeah. What what was I going to say? What was the last thing you said before I did that little disclaimer?
I said looking at rumors and
Yes, yeah.
whether it was
Um,
confirmed on the website.
Yeah, so back in the day, yeah, Liverpool got to the point now where usually it would be announced by a certain journo and that was it, done. And I think that's just the new owners. But man, yeah, I didn't. I mean, who did you get stung by the most? Didn't was no, because Willian came to you after. Do you remember Willian with Tottenham and Spurs?
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
also
yeah.
had something with Liverpool before that. Salah,
No,
you know, back in the
Salah
day.
with you guys
Yeah, he was supposed to
before he went to
join
Chelsea.
us
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then went to Chelsea. But
Yeah,
have you?
I'm trying to think from an Arsenal point of view, and I think I've kind of just removed them from my memory, just because
There's the classical Wenger. Like, wasn't he like really close to signing Ronaldo?
there, there's been millions of those. Like, as in, there's been close to Ronaldo. We had Yaya Toure playing a friendly for us. We had
Oh, Beckham.
Mbappe. We've had Becco. We've had Mbappe say that he's such a big fan of Wenger and he spoke to Wenger before he moved to PSG. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's been a few of those starlets, and Ibrahimovic as well, the infamous one where we offered him a trial and he was like, "I'm too good for a trial. Why wouldn't you just sign me?" And then he didn't sign, supposedly. So yeah, there's been a few.
Th-
What could have been?
there, there's a thing with Ibra the other day. You know, Liverpool played AC Milan the other week, and Konate played. And
Mhm.
there's this thing that was going around Twitter where it was like Ibra, a quote from Ibra saying something like, "Oh, this guy wouldn't beat me in every battle, blah blah blah." I asked him if we could swap shirts because I know that he's going to be a player for the future and stuff like that. And it turned out like some random guy had just made it up, attributed it to him, and then like it's just getting spread
Yeah, yeah,
everywhere,
yeah.
man. And
That's the
that's
power
where
of
you
the
can't
internet.
believe
That is.
shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But and you know, obviously, I don't know if Arsenal fans have done this, but Liverpool fans had this thing of like tracking planes and stuff. You know, like so
I
Nabil
can imagine.
Fekir,
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, go on.
yeah. So like they're tracking Nabil Fekir on a flight from wherever he was at, Lyon or something, to
Yeah, yeah.
Liverpool and stuff like that. And you know, he came to Liverpool, did a medical, and then the transfer got cancelled after. It was so weird, man. But
He's killing it
but
in
that,
Spain anyway. So maybe in the
uh,
future.
is it a
Uh,
Betis?
mhm.
Yeah. But wanted to ask you a question on the first podcast, right? And it was about this word, and I think I've talked to you about it before, and I think the word is aphasia, right? Like APHRASIA, yes, like that. And the reason that this word like is it's so significant is because basically what it means is it's when you know what you need to do or you know what you should do, but for whatever reason and you can't pin it down, you don't do it. And have I mentioned it before to you?
I don't think so. I don't think so. We talked
So
about that, like what the meaning. Like we
the
talked about the
the
meaning, the concept,
concept,
but yeah, not that
yeah,
word specifically.
yeah. So I first came across it from James Clear,
Hmm.
because I think he mentioned it either in a blog or something, and it is the story. It felt like it's the story of my life, like, and I don't think he would mention it, but without it being super relatable and everyone feeling like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I just wanted to like ask you, like, if you have vivid experiences of that, and like just like teamwork, how to get over that, and like, do you know what I mean?
I think of it on more of like a granular level in terms of just something as simple as like housework, or do you know what I mean? Something like that. I try not to kind of attach that idea to say me wanting to create art or something like that, because that doesn't feel like a need. That feels like a want, if anything. Do you know what I mean? So I always attach that kind of idea to more housework stuff and like
Yeah.
real life stuff. Like, oh, I need to go do the food shop for the week, or I
Okay.
need to do that kind of stuff. I wouldn't ever try to put that towards my creative mode. Maybe at work I would, but I'm so guilt ridden with my own like work ethic, if that makes sense. Like, I know I need to get this done, so let me just do it. I
Sure.
might leave it for an afternoon or something, but I'll still get it done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was it on the episode that we talked about it last week? No, I think this was a conversation we had before we even started this, where it was that like that whole thing of like if you had to do the things that you want to do creatively for work, then you'd get up and do them. Do you know what I mean? It's that whole thing
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
I used to get up at 4:15 in the morning because I had to get on the M25 and go to work at that time.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I like now, maybe when I was 20, but nowadays, man, you ain't seeing me up at that
yeah.
time for nothing. For nothing.
Yeah. To be fair, it's it's about the passion and like knowing it's a passion, if that makes sense. Like, because obviously we have passion, we both have a passion for creating, um, for whatever kind of art form, etc. But until we kind of force it to be the passion of the moment, we're not very. I mean, I am not very dedicated, if that makes sense. Like, because I've had the same thing where I've forced myself to get up at like 4:30 every morning for however many days in a row to create every morning, and I was doing it. I was like in love with that, and then back to your point at the start of this podcast, something came along and just kind of derailed me, and then boom, I'm pushing this rock
Yeah.
off the mountain again. But it's because I kind of forced myself to know that that was my passion, like to create and to do those things. And I'm sure you do. You feel the same way in terms of until you kind of force it to be your um, creative moment, I guess.
It's really hard because I've had patches in the past where I've had the time to do it and I've had the it feels like the desire. What do you think about the idea that if you're not doing something like that, that you it's just that actually you don't really want it enough? Like, what do you think about that? As a
That's that
fellow sort of like,
yeah, 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 that's something I've been telling myself way more recently, to be
yeah.
honest, because I think half to get rid of some of that guilt that I feel
Hmm.
with not creating, in terms of like maybe it isn't your passion, maybe you, because you've done it in the past, you don't want to do it again because you weren't really like connected to that moment like that, or that style of creating or whatever it is. Um, so yeah, I've forgotten the question. My mind just went fucking blank.
Just
Sorry.
just like what do you think about the whole idea of if you're not doing it, then
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
what you
Yeah. Yeah.
want.
Yeah. 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 So
Maybe you want something else.
yeah. Again, sorry. So it comes back to um, me kind of letting my guilt slide in that, but it's
Yeah.
it's probably just I genuinely don't feel like I've found that passion as
Mm,
well, outside of me just letting myself off with my laziness or whatever that reason I'm not creating is. I genuinely don't think I found my passion
mm.
in terms of my creative style.
Yeah.
Like, for like to
Yeah.
hone in on something, I think my creative style doesn't
Yeah.
exist. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel the same way. Like, I definitely feel like I haven't found like the specific thing. But then one of the things that I sort of think about as well is that the whole idea of you become passionate about something the more you do it and the better you get at it, and then the more of a reward you feel when you complete it, like,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
I really am enjoying cooking lately because I've never cooked this much. Like, I've never been
yeah,
able to cook, like, seriously, man. But then today I made, like, like rosti, like, grate the way you grate the potato, and I
yeah,
grated the
yeah,
potato. I had to squeeze the water out in a tea towel and then fry it and stuff. And Alicia came in halfway through and was gonna, like, relieve me of my duties, like, take over. But I
yeah,
didn't want to. I was like, no, I need to get.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
done
You want to
this. I
see
want to
this
see it.
from the from start
Yeah.
to finish.
Um.
That's fine. That's quality.
Yeah. So in some ways, I kind of think about that, and I believe in that. And so that makes me think, well, what you need to do is pick one thing, and even if you're not super passionate at the beginning, you
Just
will
keep
be by
trying
the
it.
end.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, but then I know what you mean, because how do you keep going with, it's like a chicken and the
yeah,
egg, because if your absolute passion was, remember when you were doing your illustrations, if it
hmm
was just to make illustrations, you would still be making illustrations now. But there needed to be more there, right? There needed to
yeah.
be, like, another element.
I think I think I suffer for going back to as part of last week's conversation, that like lack of attention as well. The attention span isn't there because
Yeah.
part of my thinking has always been like I never want to create something I've done in the past, no matter how much better it could be because of all of the knowledge I have in the time in between. I never want to try and like recapture an art style that I thought was good 5 years ago,
Okay.
or recapture that moment because the moment felt so good or something. I'm always like, what's next? What's new? What?
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be new in the space. It could be just new for me. Like, what's next for me? I'm always looking in the future than the past.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that's the right thing to do. Like, you don't really want to revisit your old work and stuff like that. And uh, I don't know, man. Another question, right? I know I like just like volleying
It's
questions at
fine.
you,
It's all good.
but I guess it's me processing my
L1
thoughts through
triangle.
what you think. Like, what did you say?
L1 triangle. Sorry. Sorry.
um, hold on. What was I going to ask you? Have you noticed a decline in motivation as you've slightly gotten older? Maybe it's maturity. Maybe it's because I don't want the things I wanted when I was a kid. Say kid, but I mean like 18, whatever.
Yeah,
And I think part of that is that I'm not a dumbass. Like, and I don't, when I was 18, I wanted to be famous. I wouldn't want to be famous for shit now. Maybe some prestige because it helps you earn money and stuff.
yeah.
But it's that whole thing of you'd rather be rich and anonymous because you'd have to worry about people sticking their nose. So, do you? I mean, for sure, your motivations will have changed, but do you
Mhm.
feel like they're less, like,
Uh,
have reduced in any way?
I'm. I think I to kind of answer your question and not answer your question. I believe that as human beings, we tell ourselves stories in
Mm,
the sense that I feel like I could find the motivation for anything. Should I want to? Should I need to? And all that. But the story that I tell myself is I'm not inspired enough. Do you know what I mean? The an example I can give is that every day, uh, as vain and egotistical as this is, every day I was posting on Instagram stories like a piece of poetry, a picture, just the time, whatever it was, just doing that on a daily basis because I was living, I could live a different day every day, if that makes sense. I feel like the
sure.
monotony of my daily basis now kind of steadies that motivation scale.
Yes.
For along with the answer, I feel like there's no I'm not searching for inspiration the same way I was in the past. I feel like
Mm,
I'm very content with the goals I have now and the reasons I do things now.
mm.
That kind of answers the question.
Yeah, and thinking about your past when you were doing that, and it reminds me of me when I was at uni as well. Like I had this kind of, so the way that I was just thinking about it then, as you described it, was there was a lack of a sense of equilibrium. So actually, you were kind of like there was a lot of chaos, wasn't there? There was a lot of
Yeah,
chaos, and that reflected in your art.
yeah,
And almost you have reached a level of equilibrium, and probably you're in a more peaceful state now.
yeah.
I mean, don't artists and comedians talk about this a lot, where they're like, "Oh, I'm worried I'll lose my edge
Hmm.
if I'm happy or if I'm at peace."
Yeah.
And in some senses, they're right. Like art is a thing that comes from like turmoil, really,
Hmm.
isn't it? Either elation or at the other end of the spectrum, like yeah, pain.
My favorite example to use, and one that might hit home, is Chance the Rapper, in terms of the albums that preceded
I know. Yeah,
his like happiest project were
yeah.
like amazing. They were critically acclaimed. They were. I mean, we went to bloody Amsterdam and Tilburg to go watch him because of that music, and then he releases an entire album dedicated to how happy he is with his wife, and it didn't hit the same. Like it's it's easier to write in that sadness or
Yeah.
that chaos, like you said, because brings stories. Like a day where I make tea at the same time every day doesn't write a story to me.
No,
Like,
but it's nice. It's
yeah,
nice
it's
still
it's nice,
in
but
its own way.
it's difficult to kind of appeal to everyone or like appeal to the masses in just making a cup
Yeah.
of tea. At least my poetry was never at that point where I could write about a cup of tea like that. So
Yeah, yeah, like Zen poetry.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my like writing, because at uni I used to just in third year I was writing like furiously, or second year maybe, and I think a lot of it is that I have been in a relationship for like 8 years now, and so a lot of it was the not knowing who I was in terms of like I guess creatively, whatever career, all of that stuff. I still don't really know now, but hey ho. But I think I've always been motivated a lot romantically. And I don't really know why, but like when I was younger, I used to listen to music all the time and just like think about like potential futures with girls and stuff like
Yeah.
this.
Even it,
And
yeah, go on.
yeah, no, and just there's it, it levels off and you become at peace with someone. You're in a relationship, and it's kind of like, well, you lose that. You don't need to write about pain. I mean, that's why Taylor Swift has to hop in and out of relationships all the time, isn't it?
Yeah. Makes total sense why they would, because those albums probably sell a bit more than
Yeah.
the happy stuff. But yeah, there's some, as sadistic as this will sound, there's something special about the chaos though, in terms of, because
Mm.
if you can find a way to hone that shit and put it into something that's useful, even just to yourself as like a therapy to yourself, that shit is incredible. Which I totally understand why artists and the like would keep searching for that chaos, because there is not. It's like an adrenaline hit. Like being, but I always equate like some of my favorite poetry is this that I wrote. Is the stuff that I was able to translate the chaos into like meaningful lines, but more meaningful as to I knew what they actually meant versus the reader taking their own meaning on. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's like an adrenaline to me back in the day.
Mm.
I wouldn't,
Also,
but yeah,
because of the subtext there, it just meant that rather than just creating a page of writing, it was like
yeah,
it was a voluminous thing, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, and you must have this as well. Even though I know that in these times I was unhappy and in pain, I do look back and kind of like crave that. I crave that. I mean, I used to sit there in uni whilst the teacher was like talking in front of me and just be fucking scribbling, like writing a whole page of notes. People around me must have thought I was a lunatic, but
Yeah.
in my mind, I was like, I feel creative. I'm gonna let all of this
Yeah,
shit come out. Uh,
that stream
um,
of consciousness writing was incredible.
Oh,
Like
so
such a
much
powerful
fun, man.
exercise. Like yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have another idea slash question for you, which I think is
And
quite funny. I was thinking today that I feel like my mum and my dad play this silly word game on Facebook where you like put words together in like patterns and you have to get all words. And my mum's like ridiculously good at it. She must have just been practicing for ages and done it loads. I can't beat her yet, and it does my head in. But I am so motivated to go on it for the competition. And you might remember from playing games with me in the past, but I get really competitive. Like I will cheat to win and stuff. And so what I've been thinking, and like maybe you are the same, right? I think we need an enemy, like a rival. Like, because like you must have had it where, okay, so I'm not gonna sort of explore your personal situation that much back then, but you had someone that you either needed to not impress but or prove wrong. And that for me, I was there as well.
That took me too long to like figure out what you were talking about.
Calculate. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
I like danced
No,
around
no,
it.
no, you did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry
But
on.
like, and I had a similar thing when I was most creative. I went to somewhere, I went home, and I remember I did like a 6 minute, like literally furiously punching a punch bag to get into the best shape I've ever been in my life because one girl rejected me. Like, do you know what I mean? And so I think we need like, Ash in Pokemon.
You need Gary. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gary, is that what you called him?
That's his name. That's his name in the
Oh,
show, fam. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the
Relax.
series.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
I know you could
yeah.
type in a name. I'm not typing in some random fucking dude that I
Um,
know.
mine was, mine was called Poo Poo Head. That's why I got
Wow,
confused.
nice. Yeah, yeah, that wasn't universal. I'm sorry. They did in the animated series. They didn't quite call it Boo Boo.
But yeah, like, do you
Yeah, yeah.
what
You
what
need the
way?
antagonist in the story to like kind of push you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and what way do you think there is around that? Because you like,
Do you know what because there's two sides to that kind of person you need. It's either the happy muse, which kind of leads to both, that they can be an antagonist in moments, they can be the muse in the other, or
yeah,
just like the downright antagonist, like the person you fucking want to prove wrong. Um, I agree with the kind of sentiment, but I'm trying to think of other times I was creative just to make sure this isn't the only time. You know what I mean? So that I can like prove to myself that it wasn't true. Um, I
well, you
think
would go on. Sorry.
I think the other time I can like happily say I was very creative was the time that we were like choosing to be accountable to each other. Do you know
Oh
when we
yeah.
used to like on a daily basis be like, oh, I did this, 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 and
Mm.
like vice versa. That was the other time I was very much creative. So I'm hoping that that wasn't based on like a muse or antagonist. That
I was
was
just thinking.
boredom at
I was like,
Williamville.
yeah, secretly like I was on the wall with like darts in my head and stuff. Like I'm going to beat this guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's done four things. I need to do five. Yeah. No, no, no. But no, I definitely understand that fucking idea, man. It's true as fuck though, because you just want to prove. It's you're basically talking to yourself. You're proving to yourself, but just using them as like that Mr.
Yeah,
Motivator. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Fucking hell.
Do you
I
obviously got
no, nothing, man.
like Michael Jordan? That's he did that with everyone. Like you've seen the memes and stuff. Have you watched Last Dance?
Yeah, yeah. Amazing, amazing.
So do you remember the story? And I can't remember it as clearly now. I think we've talked about this before, right? But there's the story where he just I think he just dominated some kid, right? And I think because what happened is he had a bad game, like in the reverse fixture, the initial one, and this kid was like 18, whatever. And apparently at the end of the game, like this kid went up to him like, "Oh, good game, Mike!" Like wanted to like shake his hand and stuff because he was Michael Jordan, whatever. It's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. And then in the reverse game, Michael Jordan was all G'd up because in his head, this kid had been like, "Good game, Mike."
Yeah,
Like like
yeah.
taking the piss because he'd done better
Yeah,
than him. So Michael Jordan's there like the whole time. Goes out, he's like jumping into him. I don't understand basketball that much, but like knocking him over and
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
And he took it
Absolutely,
personally, like.
yeah. He took it, and then I took it personally. And then I think in the actual show they go to him. Oh, and like so, he said that. You think he said it maliciously? Did he actually say it? And he goes, No, I made it up in my head. He didn't even say it. He
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
say good game. But just
But
jokes,
but
man.
that's it though. Like he's clearly found something in his brain where he knows how to motivate himself. That's all it is. That's what we as regular human beings need to find. But then I, I I come back to the earlier conversation. Like he knew his passion. He just had to figure out how to be motivated for that passion. I
Mm,
think it's difficult when you don't quite fully understand your passion yet, if that makes
yeah,
sense. Because like if you,
yeah.
because I feel like I'm not gonna say sport is easy to be motivated for, but if you know the rules of the game, like you know the game that you're playing in is to be you have to be motivated for that. Whereas I feel like in the creative world, in the artistic world, it's so much like more to it. Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not shit
It's
on
quite yeah.
athletics. I'm not a fucking
No, but I
football,
agree with
but
you, man. It's easy for David Goggins to get on YouTube and be like who's going to row the boats and all that, and just be like,
him
do
because he was
this
a
many.
Navy SEAL, bro. Like what do you
Yeah,
mean?
not me.
Exactly.
I'm on the shore, dry, like in the sun.
Yeah.
No, but like it's easy to. It sounds so stupid saying it's easy because clearly it's not. Some people have
Yeah,
another
yeah,
level that they can go to, but at the same time, when your rules are just go out, run, work out, do this, do that. You a lot of these motivational speakers, where do they come from? They come from sports, they come from athletics, because all you need is pure fire to do that.
yeah.
But you can't like it's a different thing for someone who's like training to be like a programmer or something. It's not like you can just sit there the whole night just like do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
So
it's difficult to find that like end goal in because every game you're trying to win, that's like the end goal per day, or in the basketball kind of realm anyway. It's that like that end goal on a daily basis until you kind of figure out how to make a consistent end goal for yourself in these kind of realms is difficult,
mm,
man.
do you think some of it is because with sports, for example, like it's a I guess a lot of these sports now have been around for quite a while. And then like intellectual pursuits or say creative things, like I don't know, like creating art or at least specific types of art, let's say, they've not been around as long. And so the thing is to become a successful athlete are kind of like tried and tested, they're proven. But like I don't know, I just can't see there being a same effect to me, like because I just JavaScript, man. I'm on I'm learning for loops and well just loops in general and stuff like that, right? And it's hard, man. It's hard for my brain to process that shit. But it's like, what do I do? Just like David Goggins it and just get on there and just literally beat my brain to
Yeah,
death with
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
loops. Like, would that work? I don't know.
I think to take a step back, I think the difference is that art, like to make it in the art world or creative world or even development in general, it's all subjective versus the like binary of yes, they're good, no, they're not in like um, the sports world. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like
Yes.
that's that.
Trophies.
Yeah, basically, but if it's a subjective world, you're gonna find people that like you. You're gonna find people that hate your shit. Like
Yeah.
it's difficult to make it consider like have a blueprint to make it. Basically,
Yeah. And I guess there's timing as well, isn't it? Like, I mean,
a
look at
lot. Yeah,
oh
yeah.
God. I was like I was gonna say look at Van Gogh. Is that how you would pronounce it? So everyone
I would.
pronounces it
Yeah, yeah.
differently,
Van Gogh.
don't they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say Van Gogh.
He completely missed it, didn't he? Missed the time, like, and then afterwards, he's one of the most famous painters ever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I guess maybe with sports, like, it's not quite the same. Like, I don't know. But then, if you think about, say, Mo Salah, 50 years ago, it's possible that Mo Salah wouldn't be. Well, of course it's not. It's not even just possible, but it's obvious that Mo Salah would never be considered for a Premier League move because of
Yeah.
things like money, but also because it wouldn't like I don't think you're getting like what is it 1970s people like worshipping some Egyptian guy and Liverpool
Yeah,
fans
yeah,
singing about how they're going to change their religion for him and stuff. Liverpool was a
yeah.
lot more racist back in the day. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man.
But even then, like sport sports gets to move with the times like that, and the although the criteria for acceptance that like changes a bit, the like rules are still practically the same. If that
Yeah,
makes sense,
yeah,
like Because again, back to wrestling, because that's one of the only things I know a lot of. You're just to put some household names out there, like the Hulk Hogan's of the world, the Randy Savages, the Ultimate Warriors. They're like these big, like fucking, like massive dudes and that. And then you got like the smaller independent wrestlers that kind of came through like late 2000s, early 2010s. That kind of really changed the wrestling world. And like if you put them in the Hulk Hogan eras, they're just getting like smacked up because they don't have that look, they don't have the thing. But the rules of the wrestling world kind of stay the same, even though the criteria of acceptance changed. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you so tell me whether you think this is an excuse or not. I haven't solidified this in my mind, but one of the things I've been thinking about recently is that we're struggling to find like where to direct your creativity, and trying to direct it towards a particular passion, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it is an adequate excuse that everything is changing so much, like right now, like that when I go on the internet and think, right, where shall I direct? I mean, this comes down to our problem of being too open. I'm just
Yeah.
being like, I want to do a bit of that, a bit of that.
Yeah.
But like, what do you think about that? Because
To I assume we're talking about JavaScript here because it's
no,
like if we want to get into specificity, anyway, if we want to get into JavaScript specifically, I feel like there is a baseline to start off of, and then it gets troublesome because there are so many different languages off JavaScript and new ones coming out every other fucking day. Um, in general, I think it's definitely a struggle. I think it's a
yeah,
problem
yeah,
out there, like
yeah. So
because
no,
you,
I wasn't even thinking of JavaScript, but it literally that's just straight away that's an
yeah,
example because people have this thing about like start programming, don't worry about like there's so many languages, I'm going to do a bit of them all. They're like no, just pick one, whatever. But it's another example. But yeah,
yeah,
more
yeah,
in general, like how I look at the internet now, and like Web3 moves so quickly, and there's people out there that there's Web3 games already. There's like all sorts, man. Like, but do you think that is more the case now, or do you think that's an excuse because actually think about the 2000s when the internet first came along? Were they not in the same position?
I think it's definitely comparison bias. Then I don't think because in that world again specifically, it's you're still early to the game. Like I know people are ahead of you still, but that's comparison
Mm,
bias. Like it's still an early kind of world that's still being formed, I guess. Um, I'm trying to think on a more personal level if I can kind of relate. I think I, I wouldn't I wouldn't call it an excuse. I'd say it's comparison bias. Like you're looking more at what other people can do and you're not quite there. Because I do that a lot with like the example of creating art on like my iPad or something. It's you kind of put yourself down because you're like, oh, I'm never going to get to this level because you're kept playing catch up from day one, basically.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Like looking at
go on.
God, just like looking at someone with like like I don't know, like 100 or 1,000 posts on Instagram, and then like you go like, oh, I'm never going to be there, when actually it's literally just like just focus on the beginning, do one at a
Yeah,
time, stuff like that. What because obviously my little brother Harry is at uni and he's doing business and stuff, and I'm not sure how he's feeling about the course and stuff like that, but it has made me think a bit because I, after my uni experience, really enjoyed it. It was loads of fun, but it's not necessarily benefited me in any obvious way.
yeah,
I know it's slightly different for you.
yeah.
What do you think you would recommend? Say you had an 18-year-old, yeah, and they're relying on you. They're like, Mikesh, come on, like, you're my cousin or you're my older brother, whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think I should do? Should I go to uni? If I do go to uni, is there a standout thing that you think I should study in terms of having a successful career? Or do you think I should just head straight into the world and start making? What do you think you would say right now?
I'm gonna give you a cop out answer, but the actual answer
Go
I
on.
would give is A, if you're looking for life experience, go to uni. The debt will be paid off eventually anyway. But like
Yeah, yeah,
life experience, uni was like incredible. Versus like because if you, I can't imagine you're experiencing the same shit if you jump into the work world straight away. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
You might have friends that kind of you can semi live through, but it's
Mm,
never going to be the same as you like going through that day to day of
yeah.
those weekly existential crises. You know what I mean? That life experience is incredible. But then I would say if you are going to study at uni, pick something you're passionate about that you're willing to do 3 years for, and if you are happy if you're happy to change that after year one, then that's fine. But whatever you're studying throughout those 3 years, make sure it's something that you're somewhat passionate about, and not don't just do it for the money. Don't just do it for the um, to keep everybody in your family happy. Because I have a lot of brown relatives that try to push certain
Oh,
people into like marketing and business and all kinds of other crap like that. Um, but then my flip answer would be if you're not sure about what you want to study, you have no passions yet, jump in the work world, earn that money so you can build some free, like start building that freedom to figure out
mm,
what you want to do. As long as you're willing to put that work in to figure out what you want to do, then work as well, like go for the work
mm,
route. So I try and give both and then let them make the decision because I'd never
yeah.
want to push someone down one road just because that's what I experienced. Like,
Because it's so uncertain, isn't it? And you can go
yeah,
to uni and you can have a great experience and then come out and have nothing, or you can
yeah,
go there, have a crap experience, and then bump into someone in the street. And next thing you know, you have an amazing job. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like,
And even from just a networking standpoint, working at that age, 4 years down the line, your CV would look great, like very healthy.
yeah.
Like the people you met in those 4 years could push you 10 years down the line. Like, do you know what I mean? There's so many positives for both. There's so many
Mm.
positives for both. I think the answer to your question, I think you would have to give both point of views and let them decide.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I think you're right. I think it's less so about giving them an answer like, oh, I think you should do this. And it's more so, here's what I think about that. Here's what I think about that. This is what you could have on this side or what you could have on that
Yeah,
side. And guess what? You could have either on either side as well.
yeah.
And it is just giving information and being like, no, you go off and think about that clearly rather
And
than like,
the other point I would say, and I said it to my cousins recently, was that you're um, you're always going to get the opportunity to work regardless. Like it might not be in the field you want, it might not be whatever, but just like the idea of working, you're always going to have that opportunity. You could be in uni and working the weekend job. You could be finishing uni and still getting into the work world. Like that's fine. That's an okay route to go as well. Like
mm,
there's no thingy about that. It all depends on the goal at the time as well. Because again, we said it just now. Like our goals at 18 aren't the same goals as when we left uni. You know what I mean? Like it's just part of life like that.
the only thing that I think you could compare experience wise at least to uni is if you went traveling for like a
Yeah,
long period of time. That's the
yeah.
only thing that is going to give you the same depth of enjoyment in your
You
experiences. Like,
you'd probably get more experience because you'd be meeting a wider range of people,
yeah,
potentially meeting a wider range of people.
yeah, yeah. But it's so funny, you know. There are certain people that go traveling and they do. I don't know. There's some people that are just made for that constant nomadic lifestyle of, and they end up working on like farms in Australia to get like a visa there, and then sort of about 10 years later, they're still doing it, like bopping about and
Yeah,
stuff. Um, but yeah, I think I think as well is I don't know, even to myself, you know, man. And I was convinced that I wanted to be an actor at 18. I was convinced at like 16, but I think I would have even said to myself, stop, take a year, even longer. You're probably not ready to commit to something that you can only do once, i.e., even if you can do a degree a second time, you don't have the time for the 3 years. You would probably have to pay if it was a BA or BSc. Um, Do you know what I'm saying? Because I've looked at stuff now. Like if I wanted to, I think I'm probably interested enough in say neuroscience. Whether I have the brains on it is another thing, but the interest is there. I probably could have sat through a BSc and doing that, but I can't afford that. Don't have the time. Any
Yeah.
science, man. Um, but it's so
But
difficult
the,
to make a decision.
but exactly that. So my point was going to be, even if you take that year out, you might not know where that kind of leads you at the end of the year. And the problem, I think, a problem that you could face is kind of knowing that timeline, because you could get 10 months into a year long kind of process where you're like, all right, I've taken this year out, and then I need to figure out what I'm going to do. That nine, like month 9 or 10, you'll be like, fuck, I need to figure out what
Yeah,
I
you
need to
just
do, kind
leave.
of thing.
Yeah, stack it at the back
Yeah.
end.
Yeah. So
What?
I think there's so many pros and cons to all of these kind of
Yeah,
journeys you take.
yeah. It is just like the butterfly effect, isn't it? It's like you see this little the river and then the tributaries like coming off, and it's just like and anything you can get hit by a car crossing the road, especially if you cross the road like me or you, which is like faster than we should. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think. What do you um the psychologist like Daniel Gilbert, I think his name is, has this whole thing where one of the things that he tells people to do is a lot of time to just decide things rather than spending ages worrying about deciding them. You know what you said earlier about as human beings we tell stories to ourselves.
Yeah.
So this is basically the same principle. It's that we decide, we pick an option, and then we spend the time afterwards in our brain subconsciously convincing ourselves that the option that we chose was the right one. So a lot of the time he says if you're thinking, should I marry this woman, should I not marry this woman, it's like just pick one and then
Yeah.
pick it, and then you'll make up your mind afterwards and usually convince yourself that you're happy if it's that complicated.
Yeah.
um
It's that old thing where you flip a coin in the air, and then whilst it's in the air, you know, kind of subconsciously what you want to do anyway. So that choice is
yeah,
there.
yeah, but have you ever got yourself into a twist with that where you're like so that idea is that you do like a random choice generator or whatever, and so or flip a coin, so it's like pick an option for tails, pick an option for heads, flip it, and then whatever option you get, if you get that option and then go no, I don't want to do that, pick the other one. But I don't know about you, but I just go back and forth like okay no
Or
I
you
want
keep doing it, you keep doing it because you can't decide.
like an infinite loop,
Yeah.
just break my processing power.
Yeah, that definitely has happened. Because I guess you kind of were hoping that the coin would have the answer, and
Yeah,
or whatever,
can you not
and it
just give
didn't.
give me the
Yeah.
answer? Oh,
But yeah, no, I understand. I understand the point of just kind of make a choice and figure it out after, because that makes total sense. It's like a Big Bang Theory episode where Sheldon kind of keeps all of his decisions on a dice, and depending on the dice roll, like is the choice of breakfast, choice of lunch, the clothes he's going to wear, all of that kind of stuff is decided for him. It gives him
yeah.
so much like processing power and brain power to do real life shit.
Yeah. And so that's like a real thing as well. It's like called decision fatigue, where the idea is the more decisions you have to make, the less power you have for the good stuff.
Yeah.
And so like I remember back in the day, like when I was like spent so much time when I was younger looking for self-help stuff and things like that. And I think I remember someone would often kind of opt and talk about like just standardizing your day. So you know what you're doing at times as well, so you schedule your day, but
Yeah.
also have the same thing for lunch every day. So that way you're just going to have the food and you know what you're going to have, you know how to cook it, you know how long it's going to take, and then boom, you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
But then I don't know about you, man. Like me and Alicia have like talked about this a lot, right? We don't think we would want to live a life like we would much rather be unhealthy and enjoy food for the rest of our lives than be fit and be like uh doing a keto diet and like checking our blood.
I think I think more than just the idea of like knowing what you're gonna have and not having to think about it is fine. But I think the variety, you miss out on the variety and what the variety can give you after the fact. Do you know what I mean? Being able to
Yeah,
being able to talk about, like, sit with someone and have 5 different meals over 5 different days, you're bound to like have like a different viewpoint, a different conversation every day, even if it's just based on the food. But like,
Mm,
I don't know, I feel like the variety could add to the conversation in general because you're thinking about different things now. Whereas if you're kind of having the same thing over and over again, everything's kind of gonna feel like it moves into the same way, if that makes sense.
yeah. And at the same time, so do you, yeah, I guess this kind of it leads to another question about like obviously your day to day. But that standardizing of meals, what I found is the more similar my days get, the quicker time seems to go. Because I guess a month feels like a day because in a sense it's get up at 5, drive to work, work
Yeah,
through the
yeah,
day,
yeah.
come home, make dinner. Oops. Um, and but how do you cope with that at the moment? Because I guess you do have quite a scheduled day. We've talked about the benefits in some senses, but how do you? I guess yeah. How do you keep it fresh? Like how do you?
I can't say recently I have been keeping it fresh. It's more the content I consume is the variety, if that makes sense.
Sure, sure.
Because it'll be some days I'll be like, fuck it, I'm playing FIFA. Some days I'm like, I'm not playing at all, and I'll just read a comic or I'll just watch something on TV or spend more time with my dad or something, having a couple of beers.
Yeah,
I think it's those moments that kind of add the variety. Because although my work day has like enough variety in it, it's still I know what I'm gonna get. Like I'll wake up at this time, I'll start my day at 9 o'clock on the dot. I'll probably hopefully have lunch at this time and then
yeah,
hopefully finish around this time. Everything in between is there's enough variety there, but it's not conscious variety, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Um, but back in the day, I used to do meal preps and kind of
yeah.
that stuff. And again, it was the con. I wonder if it was more structured then. Actually, I don't actually thinking about it, I don't think it was. I think the chaos around the meal prep kind of added to the variety in terms of going out every night and or staying in and writing a poem like a weirdo. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
It's funny because I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima on PS5, and obviously, like one of the elements of it is that you every now and then you sit down and you compose a haiku.
Nice,
Yeah, you
nice.
just sit
Sounds like
there.
yeah,
Yeah, so obviously that's you were just leading the samurai life. That's all it was, man.
yeah. And I used to have the top knot and the fucking long beard as well.
So
Come
no,
on,
yeah,
come
yeah.
on.
I just imagine
Cheers.
you sitting there in your gi or whatever they wear. Um, but yeah, it's definitely it's I I really struggle with making schedules, sticking to schedules, and also how that impacts my creativity and stuff. Because one of the ideas that I do subscribe to, though whether I've been able to put it into practice or not is another question, is the idea that constraints are actually good. So if you say to yourself, you have to write about this topic, then actually that's going to help you,
Yeah,
even though you feel like you're narrowing yourself down. And it again echoes back to the problem with being too open. Because if I can't constrain my creativity, then what happens? All these creative thoughts are happening, but 1 minute it's about Web3, 1 minute it's about mushrooms, one minute
yeah.
it's about like gaming or something, or making stuff on YouTube or write. It just like, and so I don't know. Like I feel like I can't stick within a schedule, man. I wonder whether do you think to be successful you have to be able to stick within a schedule like
I don't know whether to be successful you have to. I think it does help one. It's helped me. I'll say that.
yeah has
Um,
a
yeah, because just going back to thinking about the most creative times, any constraint always helped me. Like my poetry would be 8 lines, and there'll be some kind of rhyming
mm,
pattern in them. Every single one was around like 8 lines was my minimum, and then if I wanted to drop a hot 16, I would drop a hot 16. Um, all of that, the waking up early and kind of having to fit in the creative work I do within that time frame before work, or when I was working at William Hill and knowing if I was doing a morning shift, my evening would be creative and other vice versa. Like I think constraints definitely are useful. Do you find that you don't stick to the schedule because they're not fluid enough, if that makes sense? In terms of, so you might block out time for 10 to 11 to do this or whatever, but they're not like periods in time. Do you know what I mean? So like the morning is going to be spent doing this, and however long that takes or whatever. Are you too rigid? Are you not rigid enough as
No,
to?
there's a fluidity to it, man. Like I'm quite loose in the sense that I guess I'm liberal with myself. Like I'm not beating myself, and I'm not going, you need to do this between this time,
Yeah,
because things change all the time. But something just, I think it's, remember we were talking about energy last week.
yeah,
So if I let's say get to 2 o'clock and I'm tired and that, and in my head I've got coding planned, like it just isn't, that's not productive. And I know now, I know we talked about, we probably know ourselves a bit better now in terms of our
yeah,
energy levels and when they fluctuate. But even then, something happens, like I still haven't figured out that time that is most, like when, oh, we did talk about this last week actually. I was going to say when you think is most productive, and we both agreed it was like, did we say it was like 11 maybe, or
yeah. It was
like
it was morning till about, mine was about morning till about 12-ish,
till about
around that
12, and
time.
then
Yeah,
yeah, and then you munch, and then you just like afterwards just like,
yeah, yeah.
oh,
And
your
then you kind of
digestive
just
system
forcing
can,
your way through it till, for me, till
yeah.
5 o'clock. But, yeah,
Dude, it makes me remember being at school, and I don't understand how you can possibly think a kid's going to learn after 2 o'clock. Because I remember classes, like how can genuinely they have classes where every single kid is like, do you know, just like leaning on their head
slumped
on the
over.
desk.
Yeah,
Why are
yeah.
they still going? Like, why are the classes happening? Why not just pause it and be like, let's do this at a different time? Because all the kids are tired in the afternoon and they can't stay awake.
Because they have to stick to that curriculum, innit? It's a it's
Yeah.
a it's a nationwide problem more than it is a particular school problem, right? They have
Yeah.
to they have to answer to all these fucking governing bodies in these schools and school
Yeah.
systems and education and fucking it's strange. Again, back to last week's conversation, it's strange how the school system works in general and like how so many people make it out, if that makes sense, like actually
Mm.
survive at the end of it. I think it just puts in like basic rules for you that you kind of go back to. I think that's why the 9 to 5 is so successful in work, because obviously you're so kind of tailored to do it at a young age that you kind of just carry it on. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah.
strange.
Yeah.
But
So like they used to talk about how back in the day school was just training people to work in factories or training people to work in industrial jobs like 9 till 5, whatever. And now instead it's like training to work office jobs,
yeah,
isn't it? Really,
uh,
it's training to do that.
mhm.
But I just, yeah, I don't. It's so hard to manage your energy, and it just, another thing that I think I wonder
very
about is that, gone.
very quickly, do you think that's a motivation thing as well?
Yeah,
Because okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine. I don't need to go any further. I know what motivation means to both of us. That's fine.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Do you? So you know this whole. Do you know what the problem is? Because it's been such a long week, I can't remember if we talked about certain things last week. But you can tell me.
Yeah,
Did we talk about? So recently, I get into bed and like my thoughts are just racing, like just absolutely coming up with a million ideas at once, and I thought about it a bit and I came to the conclusion that the reason that you have thoughts in bed, the reason that you have loads of thoughts when you're in the shower, and there's like a whole subreddit, shower thoughts, is that not that that time there's anything special to being in bed or being in shower, but actually it is because you're effectively meditating, like without
it's
realizing
free
it.
time. It's free
Yeah,
time, basically. Yeah.
time where your brain can subconsciously do what it wants. Um, do you get thoughts in bed? Like, do you get ideas and stuff?
I
Yeah.
I I wouldn't say ideas. I'd say a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
I think about what's coming the next day. I think about what I try to process what happened on the day.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's horrible. I try and, for lack of a better term, I try and make sure my brain is tired before I go to sleep, before I even switch everything off. Like
Yeah.
just to quieten my brain, even though it's probably the one time I should be listening. It's
It's
not a healthy
yeah.
thing. I think about it a lot actually, about how often I think about what's coming at me the next day more than I should, which is I think I
Do
need to
you
meditate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you think, let's say if you at I don't know what your schedule is like, let's say at 9, if you stopped for half an hour and just sat there and just let the thoughts come through, do you think then at 10 or whenever you go bed, it would be gone mostly?
Uh, I'd I'd like to think so, but knowing
Yeah.
my brain, I'll probably be thinking about the shit I thought about in that half an hour. Um, but
Or going
again,
to the next day.
I think it's a power. I think it's one of my sorry, one of my favorite aspects of my own brain, and the fact that it never really turns off. I'm always thinking about everything.
Yeah.
Um, I genuinely think it's a plus point for myself because I know how to hone that when I need to. Obviously, I can't. I've just complained about thinking about the next day and that, but when I need to hone in on like, all right, this is what you're gonna do. This is I'm able to break it down after the fact. Should I try to? Do you know what I mean? So I'm quite happy with that process in my brain.
Yeah, yeah. At night when say that happens, when you do start having loads of thoughts and stuff and you're not tired, are you able to box it in? Or if it's does it have the ability, if it would so like, not saying it has its own motivations and stuff, but to really go because mine can go from like 10:30 till like 1, man. Like just and it's not even stresses really. Most of it is just random ideas. And the
Shit.
later it
Yeah,
gets,
yeah,
the
yeah.
dumber the ideas get.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Do you ever write those down though? Do you ever like just? I mean, obviously you're trying not to wake yourself up, so you don't want to write it down. I
yeah,
understand that because I've done that.
you know
But
what's so frustrating, man, is that I don't like I remember the ideas and the next day I think they're stupid. And the problem is that I don't know whether that is my next day brain being too sensible and basically ruling me out of any kind of creative success
yeah,
because
yeah,
because nighttime brain would do something crazy and it might be really good. But daytime brain is like, oh no, that's silly. Why would you do that?
yeah,
Think
yeah,
about
yeah.
like,
You're
do you know
almost
what I
stopping
mean?
yourself before you even kind of fleshed out the idea. I think, which
Yeah.
is which isn't always great.
No, it's not.
I if I was you, I'd start writing that shit down.
Yeah.
Because whether it's
Yeah,
good or
but
bad, at least the idea is like written down, and you might come back to it fresh eyes the next day or 2 days, 3 days, year later, be like, oh, this is an actual idea here. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I would think about writing that down.
Have you had like awful ideas when in the middle of the night before that you thought were amazing, and at the time like you're like, this is it, this is the idea that's gonna make me like, do you know what I mean?
I,
Can you
I
remember any?
on a granular level, I had a creative idea where I was like, oh, this would look sick, like a silhouette with my words like. Do you know what I mean? Flowing on it or something. It was like a silhouette of a whiskey bottle because I was thinking about that idea of like being drunk and just having those kind of moments and vibes. Genuinely, I got out of bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, turned on my Mac, tried to create something there and then I was like, oh, this is sick. Went back to bed, probably like in that half kind of sleep phase. I was creating the shit. Went back to bed, woke up in the next morning, looked at it, and my God, was it terrible? It was fucking. It was so shit. As in the execution was terrible because it was like I was like half asleep. But the
Yeah,
I when you kind of break down the fundamentals of that idea as well, it was shit. It was just it, there was nothing. There
but
was no like thing there.
so as bad as it might have looked, yeah, but you're not worse off for having done it.
Oh no, of
Do you
course.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That's one of the few times I actually got up and I was like, oh, this would be sick. Like,
what's funny now is that your brain goes, remember the whiskey bottle? When you're like, your, your brain's like, yo, Mikesh, I've got an idea. And you're like, the whiskey bottle, though. Like, can we
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about the whiskey?
yeah,
But your brain's like, no, this is
yeah,
new.
yeah.
This is
I
good.
tell myself just stay in bed, Nikesh. Just stay in bed. It's not worth it. Like, it's not worth it at all. Oh
uh,
man. But yeah,
do you
that's definitely happened.
have you amassed like so I could God I wish there was some way of counting them. Maybe there is, and I'll come back and say it next time. But have you amassed like a number of notes or ideas, or I guess just not your entire sort of like collection of everything you've ever created. But so I have Evernote, right? And I think on Evernote, like just opening up, it doesn't say like an exact number of how many notes there are, but there's probably like 2,000, and probably 1,000 of them are just pages where I've written like a line that's supposed to be
Yeah.
something special, and it just is nonsense, man. Do you have something like that?
Yeah. I mine is currently just notes on my phone. I'll
Right.
have like
Yeah.
paragraph after paragraph of like idea, or poem, or just like one line that I need to build off of and never go back to. Um, yeah, mine's the notes on my phone. Mine was artwork on my Mac when that existed. Mine's like sketches on my iPad when all that. I got them
Yeah.
played everywhere. But the notes on my phone are my favorite because those are like the raw ideas. I'll
Yeah.
hear a line. I'll be watching like Ancient Aliens with my pops and that, and like just hear one line. I'll be like, "That's a poem starter. That is like," and then never go back to it. I'll be like, "What the fuck does
10
this
years
mean?"
later.
Like, yeah. What does this mean?
Yeah, well,
Questioning
you know
UFOs
what?
in my poem. Like,
I've got a great example of that, right? So I'm just a problem child, man. On Evernote, right? There's a thing called Scratchpad on your phone, and on the Scratchpad, I have one word, right? And that word is yeast. Like, and it's been there for like
nice,
2, 3 months. And
nice.
I can still trace it back. If anyone read it, they'd be like, "What is wrong with this guy? Like, why is he just
Yeah,
writing
why is it
yeast?"
writing a shopping list on there?
Yeah, yeah. But it was something to do with like, yeast is like a fungi or something, and it's like incredible. It's so amazing. I read about it in a book, and I was like, you could do like a whole series of posts about yeast. It's that amazing. But obviously, I've just left it like just yeast.
Yeah. But I think the important part of that is knowing the idea as to why you wrote it. I think
I,
that's such a fundamental part of all of these notes, these 1,000 notes you have. Like, if you could do that for every single one, perfect. Right? Those notes are great.
yeah,
But there'll be those those notes in your Evernote that you just know nothing about. You're like, what the fuck is
nothing,
this?
nothing,
That's
man.
cool that you remember that off one word. That's pretty cool. That's pretty
Yeah,
impressive.
it's weird that it's still there. But so I actually like I've just been thinking about this now, right? I wonder, and you can say no if you want to, but I wonder whether we could challenge each other, right? And this, and it doesn't have to be any particular timeline on it, but what if? So I have this idea that I picked it up from someone else, not me, but the idea that I wrote it as a tweet because I kind of made it into this pithy thing that kind of sounded good, but it was like bad ideas executed can become good ideas or something along those lines, whereas good ideas never executed are the real bad ideas. Um, and so what I'm offering to you, if you're interested, is a little challenge. Why don't we both pick like one thing, yeah, from, I don't know, old notes, like could be notes from like the distant past, it could be recent past, and just say to each other, you need to create something from that.
As in,
Like,
like my
eh,
note to you and your note to me, or my
no,
note to
no,
me.
no.
Or
I'll create
okay,
something from my notes. So
fine.
that way we have a bit of an in if it's something you've thought about in the past. It could be an idea that you have at 2 a.m. tonight. It could be yeah, anything. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm down. I'm down. I'm trying.
Doesn't have to be big,
I know,
man.
I know. I'm trying to think because most of the ideas, and I put that in quotes on my phone, are like poem starters. So I'm trying to think. I'll try and figure something out. But yeah, I'm down for that. I'm down for that. Sure. That'll
Yeah,
be jokes.
yeah,
That'll be actually hilarious. Yeah. It'll
yeah,
just get us creating, I guess, which is always a good thing.
yeah, yeah. Another thing that along the same lines, I think it was Seth Godin. I listened to a talk with him once, and he said that some woman stood up and was like, oh, like how do you write? I can't write and stuff. I think she was she didn't, English wasn't her first language, so she wasn't speaking very clearly, but she said like, I can't really write, like I can't get into writing. And he said, well, you're speaking right now, aren't you? And she was like, yeah. And he was like, well, just speak and then write it down afterwards. You don't have a problem with writing, you have a problem because you're wanting your writing to be good. And it's never about you can't write. I feel that
Yeah,
sometimes I don't know what to write about. No, I'm just scared that whatever I write is going to be shit, and
yeah,
then it's going to hurt my sort of like whatever. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
the point is with this, it's probably going to be shit. But why don't we just make something anyway? You know,
yeah,
and, and maybe we can do a presentation.
yeah. Come back next episode and do a presentation. Yeah, that'd be so
No, but
funny.
like no, we can talk
I think
about
we
it.
should. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about it after this. But like, I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah, fuck it,
Because
man.
imagine doing like a slideshow presentation to each other. That'd be fun. Skype's like the perfect place to do it as well because you can just present your screen. Be like, hey guys.
Here are my thoughts on
uh,
yeast.
and here's where I
uh,
could go next with yeast as well, which I
yeah,
think is important.
yeast is yeast.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
but yeah,
What a
cool.
film. Yeah, that's so true.
East is
Uh,
East. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, man. I think I watched that in school back in the day. They were like trying to show us like inclusivity and stuff. Like,
yeah. And
uh,
considering most of that school was brown anyway, like, or like a
I
lot
think
of big
more. I
chunk.
think more of Beecham is brown nowadays than it was when
Yeah,
we were there. I guess it makes sense if you think about it, but how you say it, and the problem is with Beecham as well is that it's very specific, I know, but kids at that age, man, like just acting like little gangsters and stuff. Like it's
yeah,
so I don't know how you possibly deal with that because it's so silly, isn't it? Like you ever remember like when you were younger and you like wanted to be hard and stuff, and when you get
yeah.
older and you look back at that, it's just like you wish you could just shake them and be like, listen, life is hard enough without you like just messing around. I don't know.
Yeah. But again, that's part of life. That's part of that journey that you got to figure out. You got to go through those stages, turn into the
You
fucker you are now. Like, you know what I mean?
you're
It's
just
part of it.
repeatedly learning not to be a dickhead. Like,
Basically, basically, yeah,
yeah. At 40, you learn how not to be the dickhead you were when you were 30 or whatever. I mean,
yeah.
that's
And then that cycle gets smaller. You're just basically trying not to be the dickhead in the moment you're in. Like, you just don't be
or
that
the
guy.
dick on your head, yeah, is massive at the beginning of life, and it just slowly gets smaller,
Yeah,
and your goal is to make it disappear and become a
yeah.
third eye.
That's why all those adverts about erectile dysfunction come on TV. Like,
Oh, you
everyone's
mean
going through
dong,
it.
dong, dong,
Yeah,
dong?
those fucking hell. Oh man, I miss the advertising world. Like, it's such a
It is
beautiful moment.
cool, man.
Uh,
I do like advertising. I think it's really interesting. Hey, do you know Rory Sutherland?
maybe I wouldn't
He's
say I
um
do.
he's the vice president of Ogilvy.
Okay,
Um and
Ogilvy.
he
Yeah,
Ogilvy. He's really interesting, man. Like he's worth looking into because
curly haired
I think
geezer.
he
I feel like
yes,
yes,
yes.
yeah, I know who.
He
Yeah,
he
then I
just
know who
came
it
up with
is.
loads of like cool ideas about I don't know, I guess behavioral science and how it affects advertising and stuff, and how a lot of the times people try and improve things the wrong way. But yeah, it's a fascinating guy. But I think maybe we should think about tying it up here now that we've got our little challenge set in place. And before
Yeah,
we tie up, we should probably set some bounds on it, just so because we're doing it publicly, we want them to be included in this. What do you think timeline wise? Week's probably maybe a little bit too short, do you think? Or
I was gonna say it might be too long.
yeah, but what are you going to write like a 4 line poem?
I told you my poems are 8 lines. Like there's a big
Only because I
difference.
say I should probably align my, the depth of my project with yours.
Yeah,
Do you see
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
why.
yeah.
Because I mean, if I'm going to write this essay about yeast, like I need to make sure I've referenced
All
it
right,
properly.
I tell you what the give and take will be. Yeah, so mine will
Yeah,
most likely be a poem, probably an 8 to 10 line poem. But
yeah.
I'll give you the breakdown of everything, like the meaning and like how I kind of tied everything together. Yeah, and
So
that
I
could
get
be
a
like
performance as well.
you. I'll give you a spoken word. Yeah, sure, why not?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'll give you the breakdown as well. I'll break everything down, and then that'll be like the essay part. So that could be like though I feel like those two plus said performance might be the equivalent of maybe 1 page of writing if you want 2 slides.
Yeah.
It depends how much you want to think about it. 2 slides. Let's say
Uh,
let's say 2 slides of like
yeah.
like Google Slides. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have to actually present it on a Google slide, but like just
We'll hash out the details more so
yeah, yeah,
over the course of the next week. But it's actually such an exciting thing to do, man, because I'm just thinking like I actually don't think I'm going to deviate from the topic of yeast just because
I know.
for the meme purpose. But it's going to start off me being like, okay,
Yeah,
Jack, you like to write, like why don't you
yeah,
write like make a page about yeast and try and make it interesting and fun and colorful, whatever. And then like halfway through the week, I'll be like, nah, and I'll make like a 1 minute song about yeast or something.
yeah. No, no yeast, no yeast, no yeast. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was an
Uh,
old school reference for those that don't know. But if you don't know, now you know.
oh,
That was a beautiful song, by the way. Yeah, yeah, fine. We'll close it up now. This has
sweet.
been the Tears in Amsterdam podcast. And oh, fuck, I said the word podcast. This has
It's
been
fine.
the
It's
Tears in Amsterdam conversation, and one day we'll get to the reason why it's called that. This might be our How I Met Your Mother. We'll get 9 seasons deep, and then you'll figure out
fine.
why it's called that. Um, yeah, I've been Mikesh. This has been Jack. It's been lovely speaking to you, and I'll see
Sweet.
you in the next one.